what Maren is hoping for is that we all sort of can get close and share in dialogue and really sort of form the circle. If anyone that's back there, there's plenty of seats up here. Just make sure as we're talking that we'll be able to pause and turn and look at the screen. Right? I'm going to start off the introduction, but we're going to try and do it as a more group collaborative introduction tonight. So I've typed up some notes about Maren's real extensive resume, and we had a nice discussion at dinner about what that means and how we can share, I want to share so much about her when she has, I took it's an 80-page resume, but it's not that much, but I think it's really important to share all of the accomplishments that she's had, but she's wondering if we could do it together as a group. So I'm going to start, and then I'm going to pass it on to someone, the lucky person, and we can play the game, pass it on, and you can pass it on next. So maybe it's typed up, and it's in little groups and sections, so whoever I give it to next, you can kind of check off, so the next person knows where to start. Does that make sense? Does that sound fun?
That sounds fun, but I feel...
I'll sit next to you.
Okay. Well, some people in the back, why can't you come and yeah.
Well, we'll get up here.
He's got my name.
I'm going to start, and I'll share a few things, and then
I'll sit up there.
move it on.
Okay. So we're filling out everybody's.
So we'll see how it goes. You can pass it back to me. Okay. Thank you all. So to start, Maren was born in Los Angeles. After studying dance and sculpture and photography at Bennington College, she went on to get her MFA in fiber arts at UCLA, after which she began making sculptures with bent, twisted, frayed wire, rope, and created and participated in numerous performances in Los Angeles. She's now based in New York and Baltimore. She continues to create sculptures, installations, video performances, and public works that deal with equality and our changing relationship to nature. And I'm giving this to Masood as a check mark. You can go as long as you want.
Okay. She has been the director of the Reinhardt School of Sculpture at Maryland Institute College of Arts since 1997. She is the recipient of the awards and honors, including an anonymous Northern Woman Award. Sounds kind of fun. An International Association of Art Critics Award and a Lifetime Achievement Award for the Women's Caucus of Europe. She has received grants from the Lewis Comfort Tiffany Foundation, the Gottlieb Foundation, the Joan Mitchell Foundation, the Paula Krasner Foundation, and the AIM, and has performed at the Museum of Modern Art. Maren has mounted many solo exhibitions and participated in more than 125 new shows. Recent exhibitions include a 2015 retrospective at Spelman College Museum of Art, in Atlanta, Georgia, Spelman, Reginald Ingram Gallery, Los Angeles, California, Radical Presence, Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in San Francisco, California, 2012, Havana, Union. Now dig this, Art in Black Los Angeles, 1960 to 1988 at the Museum, upcoming at the ICA in Philly, Florida.
Her work is in the collection of Reginald F. Lewis Museum of the Maryland African American History and Culture in Baltimore, Caltrans Los Angeles, Hammer Museum in LA, California African American Museum in LA, Greater Pittsburgh International Airport, Pittsburgh, Portland Museum of Art, Seattle Transit Authority, Studio Museum in Harlem, Williams College Art Museum, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, to highlight only a few. You can start over again.
Then we're going to get in the next page. Gideon, so we can do that all over.
Okay.
Sorry, that's it. But I'll say it's a real pleasure to have you here, Maren. So thank you.
It's fun to be here. I really enjoy my 24 hours a day. It's been about 24 hours. 24? Making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking. Would you like to read this?
Finally, making sculpture is making life. Giving life, art is living. The days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking. Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Living the days thoughtfully and sharing is giving and taking. Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is.
Living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking. Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving and taking.
Taking and giving, it's sharing and thoughtfully days, and living is art life, giving life, making is sculpture, making final.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking. Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finally, life is art, life is sculpture. Art is living days. It is giving, taking, thoughtfully, and also sharing.
Living the art is life. Life giving. Sculpture is making thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking.
Finalmente, fazendo escultura, fazer a vida, dando vida, arte é viver. Os dias completos e dividindo também é dar e receber.
Life giving, life art is living thoughtfully the days. It's giving and sharing and taking, making time sculpture.
Taking, giving, sharing, and thoughtfully days living is art, life, giving, life, making sculpture, finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life, art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing, it's giving and taking.
Finally, making sculpture is making life, giving life. Art is living the days thoughtfully and sharing. It's giving and taking. Finally. Thank you. Thank you. So, who wants to do volunteer? Come over to the computer.
Yeah.
And there's a menu on the website.
Okay.
And choose from the menu.
All right. Pink.
Okay.
Waiting.
And
Ah.
so then choose something there. I wish I could double click on that. I'm not sure. Okay. So, are you interested in hearing about this?
Is that?
Are you interested in hearing about this piece?
Yes.
Okay. This is Untitled from 1999, made out of pink plastic shopping bags, variable sizes. Each bag, I guess it says, is 15 inches, and it's thereabout. So I hung them in a kind of clothesline up there, and it was one of many pieces that I did with the pink bags. Sometimes they were attached to trees, sometimes they were attached to walls, sometimes they were filled with, and the ones that were attached to trees were filled with these messages that students had written, wishes, hopes for themselves, the world, you know, and they were put inside. In others, we inflated them with breath, and they had love, a note that said love inside, and they took up lots of space. But this is just when I was kind of fiddling around, and I just wanted to see how it would look that were knotted together and hung in this like a line. So that's what this was. And they're, you get these shopping bags, they're magenta colored and they, they're online readily. You look up shopping bags. Do you want to do another one?
I would love to do another one.
You can do, it doesn't have to be necessarily pink, it can be.
All
Can I
right.
ask why pink first?
Oh, very good question. When I first started doing these pink things, I didn't know they were going to be in a group. I started doing them in the 70s in LA. And I think it was the 70s. Maybe it was the early 80s. The first thing I did was something called pink paths. And the paths were painted pink because I discovered that if that color pink was next to grass, both the grass and the pink looked more intense, just from color theory. And these paths were in an abandoned area that was filled with wild dogs right in the middle of LA. And the reason why it was abandoned was because they were putting a freeway through there and they hadn't finished building it. So they moved everybody out, they leveled everything, and what was left were the paths. And it was a group of people from CalArts who got together and decided to put on a show, and they invited me to be in it, and that was my contribution. But the weird thing about that, which everybody should remember about their work, is I thought that was over and done with. I had a couple of little, like memorabilia pieces of paper that I kept around for years. But I'm telling you, 2 weeks ago, I heard from a woman who is doing her master's at Williams College art department, and in history, and she got my name through somebody I had known for years and years in New York who had written about my work. They worked with this situation at Williams. She somehow got involved in writing about this house and this whole show in Linwood, California, which was where this abandoned area was. And she totally revamped it, and last week she gave a paper on it at Tufts. I mean, so you think you're doing something now for just now? It's not just for now. It can be for 20 years down the road. It can be art historically wonderful, and or, as it was with me, it led you to do other paintings. Yeah.
All the pink.
And anybody can join in and say stuff. This is a situation where I'm not the center of attention. Or I am the center of attention by accident. Okay? You guys are as important as I am in this situation. That's why we're sitting in a circle. There's no hierarchies.
Did you construct something on a rooftop?
That was in Seattle. It's at the bus station.
Oh, which one?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That was torn down recently.
Oh, good.
But it was on Pine Street.
Yeah.
Near the theater there, near
Paramount Theater?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Why'd they tear it down?
I understand that they had something more up to date that they were putting in that bus station.
I recognize it now.
Yeah. Well, they were, my inspiration was Japanese pottery and gardens.
I was reading through that.
Yeah. The plants weren't growing?
there are planters, but not the shape ones. It's, yeah, it's,
Did they save them? Did they save them?
Well, they tried to, but they couldn't. They were destroyed.
well, yeah, they are.
Well, maybe they also had a generic bunch of.
Yes, they have just
Oh yeah. Well, these they paid for special garden. And so I was inspired by the population of Seattle, just the kind of feeling I had with these kinds of gardens.
Is that an early public project, or when did you start getting interested in public art, public sculpture?
Well, when people ask me, I never really was, ever did like public interventions on that. Not like some activists.
What kinds of plants were in the planters, and how did you decide on what those
I
were?
worked with an arborist.
Were you picking a certain type of plants for?
Well, I said, well, I like bamboo, so then he figured out what species I could get that I could, well.
Someone else want to choose?
Paper.
What? I mean, you could come up here and choose yourself if you'd like. I don't mind doing it for you, but
You're doing a great job, right?
shucks. All right, the
I don't think
paper.
they're gonna let you move.
Oh, that's cool. I got that. All right.
Okay, which paper do you want?
Which? Yeah. Ah. This one?
That's a good one. Are you a writer? Well, I had a studio in Baltimore. It was in a really lighted neighborhood. And I shared it. Now, here's another really odd thing. The woman whose studio it was, and she was renting out 2 sections of her studio to other people. And she kept saying, well, Alonzo is going to have the studio over here, and you're going to have the studio here. And I said, okay. And she kept saying Alonzo this and Alonzo that. I said, well, who's Alonzo? She said, oh, you know Alonzo from Los Angeles. And Alonzo is the guy who gave me my first opportunity at public art in Los Angeles like 20 years before that. And I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And suddenly we were sharing the studio. Okay, that's about that. But this right here is just me trying to figure out, again, for the millionth time, what I felt was important to my art. So even if I don't dance, dance is important. And twisting of strands is important. And canopy is important. And biography is important. And order, which gives reason to things sometimes, is important. And unity is important.
Is it important to your art making or important to kind of like just your things that interested you at the time?
I think it was important to my art making, but now I think that it could be both. Like I was saying, sculpture is life and gives life. Well, it kind of did the separation and started to fade away between what's important to make things about and what's important to do.
So why is healing produced out? Was it something you knocked later?
Oh, I put it on the bottom, didn't I? Didn't I have healing and then did I put it on the bottom?
Oh,
It was an arrow. Oh, unity and healing. No, I think what happened was it was in pencil or something.
That's what kind of makes it look like.
It faded.
That's what kind of makes it look like a cycle as well.
Oh.
On some level. Oh.
So by writing these lists,
No, I don't know why I photographed that. I thought it was interesting that you chose that, because it's very specific. I mean, it's language that we can share, but it's also just on a scrap of paper. But this was on a scrap of paper, and the way you all read this made it something. Yeah, don't you think? Although it was what I feel, like those are what I felt at the time I was writing, and then pretty much I feel the same way. But it requires an audience, the whole thing, everything requires an audience. It's not complete without. Are there papers?
More papers?
Papers? Oh, you want to make more papers like this? Oh, those papers.
Which one? That one? That one? That one?
No,
That
bottom, that.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that one's called The Weight of Dreams. Fax paper and chicken wire. It's a canopy that was at the Studio Museum.
Yeah.
Canopies, yeah. Because, and heaven's up there. No, because the sky is up there. It's up there. It's part of the space that we experience all the time. It was very important in Renaissance. It's another surface. I mean, you can't have a room without it, really. And you really can't have a world without a sky. So. It's just there. Oh,
Yeah,
what
not
is
to
it?
me then.
Oh.
Yeah, I think of it more like a, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say something like a barrier, like a filter in between. I don't think of sky as canopy, I think of something, a canopy is more like in a forest, a canopy of leaves or something, that a barrier or filter in between that space and the space inhabited physically. That's what I think of as a canopy, but. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What book is that?
Oh, that was a bunch of fax papers. Because, in that time, there were no computer to print it. So it was all fax paper, which created a different kind of, I mean, it's different. I was doing public projects that were by some New York public schools. There was terrible projects that went on for years and years and never got finished. And crazy architects. And then my husband got really sick, and there were a lot of medical faxes and things like that were going back and forth. And then, then there was one other thing, and I've forgotten what it is right now, but it was just this weight of all of, like you have the dream of being an artist, and you do public work, and that was horrible. You had this dream about a life together with somebody, and he was so sick, and that was horrible, and, and there was a third thing that came to me. Maybe it was about money, and that wasn't working out, and that was horrible. And so it was just this weight of these horrible things, but somehow when it got put up on the ceiling like that, and then the light sort of came through it, it became very transcendent somehow. It's like, oh, that stuff doesn't matter. This is good. No, that was just trying to squeeze that length of chicken wire into that room. I think that's basically why that happened that way.
Is this the only place that you installed it?
Yeah, when I did that Spelman show last year, I recreated it in a similar size, like hallway that led into the gallery. And I used different things, different weights. Yeah.
So the size you walk.
Yeah, that
right
little
by
hallway,
desk,
yeah.
Okay.
It looked fine there. It was kind of like your eye could hit it and then you could see the rest of the show opening up on the other side.
Which one, Maren?
A mirror and circles.
This guy?
That one.
That was in a show at Gettysburg College. And those are something I was calling wrenching news, because the newspaper, I was getting the New York Times, and the newspaper is filled with wrenching news. It's not, there's no way, really. I mean, occasionally there's public interest, but basically it's all terrible. And so, a long time before that, I had been using wire rope, and I made this piece called Beanie. And it was like untwisting the wire rope and putting it in units. And because it was wire and it was short, it stood up like a short sculpture. And then I did the exact same thing to the newspaper. I didn't change the technique at all, but because it was newspaper, really didn't stand up, not really. So the ones on the bottom show you how it stood up, by being clustered tightly on the way it stood up. And then the ones on the wall were actually just thumbtacked on the wall. And the idea is that it's this mandala, which are two, mirroring mandalas, which I take to mean, again, something that's has healing properties and is transcendent and ongoing. And the fact that it's a circle that doesn't have an end. And I know that's not the spiritual or religious definition of a mandala, but that's what I understand.
Making it too, you're meditating. I mean,
Yes, it's
in
a
the
total
making,
meditation.
it's so labor. Yeah. It's really amazing. It's like, especially going to the floor, it's kind of makes you think of the labor that's involved in the sand drawings.
Yeah.
And
And, actually, it's newspaper, so I didn't put anything on it to preserve it, but it actually lasts. Newspapers last a really long time. You'd be surprised. I mean, people are always saying, you didn't put anything on it to preserve it, to treat it, or, we can't deal with that, but it doesn't evaporate. It yellows, but it doesn't really go away. It's weird about materials. The whole, especially with sculpture, it's people become fetishized, I think, around material use. And it could, for some people, it could block their creative potential.
Does your piece have a ephemera with it, or that you just have it ephemeral and after this you have to preserve it, you're just gonna have it, or
Oh, I used it again. It was in the show at Spelman.
But do you have pieces where you just would photograph it and then not really care whether it holds up or not for the next 30 years?
Like you destroy it or throw it away or?
I hardly throw anything away. Yeah. I put it in storage.
Is that what you were kind of?
Storage is terrible. It's so expensive.
Storage
But then, after 40 years, I have this retrospective, and I got a lot of stuff out of storage. But then, guess what? It had to go back.
So I'm wondering, how much your process is the same from the beginning, and how much changes.
Well, originally that mandala piece was all on the floor, and it was in separate parts, like a few units over here and a few over there. And then somehow, when we got to Gettysburg, it ended up like this. So,
It's not hard. So
Yeah.
That's something that you allow.
oh yeah.
But I wonder sometimes, because like a painter, so people, so my process is kind of chaotic, so I wonder sometimes how like conceptual and like very strong concept focused art is like, how you usually kind of want that
Yeah, the difference between, your practice is you're doing something probably within a perimeter, right? And the thing about sculpture is, it's like the way we are in this space. It's like there's no boundary in it necessarily. I mean, there's a boundary, but I can work anywhere, anyhow, through any surface, height, whatever you can think of about this space, I have access to it. And if I go outside, it's even more. And, it's like it all becomes possible that way. And I think the reason why I ended up doing that, I think, Gettysburg, has anybody been to Gettysburg? Yeah, the war and the monuments are still there. They're like totally alive. It's like creepy to go to the fields where the war was fought. I mean, it just feels like it's still happening. And maybe that's what that's about too.
So expanding the space.
It had to do with working well in the space, but also the whole thing of being in Gettysburg is very overcoming. I suggest everybody go there, especially if you're interested in sculpture, because the monuments are incredible. They're really incredible. I've taken my students there. They agree. It's amazing and horrible. Yeah. I really feel like art comes from an unconscious place, that we can't put our finger on every single thing that we're doing and why we're doing it, and then we somehow just feel compelled to do it. Maybe it's because you have to get it done for a homework assignment or a show or something, but you just have to finish it. I really don't know how to answer that. I know that I had made these things out of wire, and I know that I had been working on some stuff with newspaper, and so I thought, I could shred this newspaper up and act like it was the wire again. And because I did that, it brought in a whole other bunch of associations, like what was written on the paper, and why we have newspapers. And then, of course, when I took it to that place that had, all that history of that war and that really unsettled and continues to be unsettled situation between people, that I wanted something that was, I think, maybe thinking back on it, that had a kind of a quality to it and ongoing, everlasting perfection. That didn't include all that ugly, horrible, what was it? My least favorite project in this show, or all of those things along
that we
the
can
edge?
see.
Oh. Well, go back to public. And go down there. See where that writing kind of is and everything.
This guy?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. That's in the subway. It's so disappointing to me. I mean, it was meaningful. There's several shots of this same piece. But you see the ones down, the ones on the floor. So this is supposed to be dedicated to the memory of Malcolm X. It was a project that they came to me. Well, did they come with a dedication? No, they just said, do this project in the subway station at 110th and Malcolm X Boulevard, Lenox Avenue. It's going to be part of several subway stations, one at 116, 125, and 135. And so I decided to do one, related to Malcolm X. And I wanted to get in the whole Africa thing. I mean, I have long history with African stuff, especially like writing, and also the Muslim part. So those were supposed to be like prayer rugs. And in that particular subway station, there are also these rugs on the wall. I don't know if you know about New York subways, but some of them were built, like, I guess at the turn of the century. I have no idea when these things, but they're that kind of almost like Victorian sort of looking design. So I was taking off on that, and then I was taking off on Malcolm X and his speeches, and like this speech, which he talked about such a long time ago, about our alliance with the Middle East and the necessity for that. I mean, the first thing they did was pour salt on the carpets that I put down, and they were destroyed, immediately destroyed. The other part of it, it took me years to get the rest of it done because they kept firing. They fired the best mosaicist that they had. And they gave me this other guy, and wanted to, and so this is the worst, but it remains. And I see it every day because I use that subway. Actually, I think it's pretty good because these two are walls, and people haven't, put any graffiti on them. But this one, is more an abstraction, but I was using these symbols a lot. And then I read a book, I think it was Flash of the Spirit. Yes, it was Flash of the Spirit. And I read this, Thompson. And I read this, it was about empowerment in an ancient African civilization. And they were all the symbols I'd always used. They were the way I always used the wire rope. I mean, even talking about it to all of you now gives me a chill. Like, why did I go to the wire rope and do that? Why did I do that? And so I just made a picture of that. And well, it was in the Egypt civilization, and it's empowering. It's supposed to be empowering. Is that what you mean by Bebe?
Yeah, well, I mean, because he goes through Africa, he goes to Cuba, and so I found Cuba, also Brazil, and it's one of those things. Somebody blue. I think he calls those variables, or I think.
Okay. I don't remember that, but I do remember that they were empowering. So, in that section of there were a lot of difficulties. And so I wanted when they walked down to go into the subway, to be surrounded by these things that were empowering. Of course, Who knows?
Can I pick a category?
But-
Can I pick a
Oh,
category? There are
please,
actually
please,
two
let's
that I'm
get off
really
of this.
interested in. You can pick the one that you most want to talk about. I'm really interested in your film and video, and then also collaboration. So perhaps
Okay.
which is more interesting to you to talk
Well,
about?
I have to tell you, I have no film and video to show you.
Okay. That's
I
good
can ask something else.
Easily show.
Well, there is a kind of
Wait, where am I going?
filmic thing going on in those.
Back to filming.
Okay.
And those are all from a video on the bottom. You know, you see those where those people are kind of, and it's all bluish? Yeah. So that's a trilogy I did, and it's called Lives, and I do not have the video. I never had it. The guy who took this, I happen to have it for an afternoon, and he shot it off the TV. And I've never seen that video since that day. But this was meaningful to me because I did this trilogy about daily life called Diaries, about parents and children called Lives, and about the things that I thought were, that I was, that I thought looked good about me, and that was called Vanities. And so my mom is in this one. And so it's how these parents and their children look. So it was me and my mom, and then two women I took dance class with and their sons. And then in the Diaries one, some of the same people were in it, and they created a phrase of movement, and then these phrases were mixed and matched and repeated, and then at a certain point they would all come together as a line, jump once, and then that would start another phrase. And then in the Vanities one, I was just from my way, from like here up, and a lot of it was my back and my arms and shoulders. I wouldn't do it now at all. And they were a long time ago, 78. And I was influenced by stuff I read in art magazines about the performance work that was going on in Judson Church in New York. So, did you want to see more of those, or did you want to see the one I did recently with my daughter? Okay, that was at the top. That's those two, those three.
These guys?
Actually, there's four of them there. The ones that are dark and that have these big projected images behind us are just, we're kind of examining each other for likenesses, and that's being projected behind us. And so sometimes it's my camera and sometimes it's her camera. And she got a degree at NYU in photo. And then after we finished our whole body examination thing, then we went out into the audience and we shot people in the audience, and they were projected. And the whole idea, I guess, with that, it was using the audience, like I'm using you now. I hope you don't feel like I'm using you, because I don't feel that way, really. But the audience there, I wasn't using them either. I was trying to make a statement about, what's on the stage and what isn't on the stage, and this whole issue of equality and people being part of one family, whether they're related or not. And although I actually believe everybody's related. So that's what that was about. And then the day before, or the afternoon before, they had us doing a workshop. And in that workshop, we used large mirrors to talk about how we looked, how other people looked, how, like, my eyes looked a certain way and their eyes looked a certain way, or their nose looked a certain way. And that was the one that wasn't in this darkened.
How many was this?
Sorry.
What was the year of this?
It was like 2011 or something.
And I was gonna ask if you were gonna revisit this performance in with your daughter, who's
Yeah.
at ICA in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yeah, the ICA performance will have myself and my daughter, but we're doing mandalas. She was there, she shot that one with the mandalas on the floor. But they're gonna be mandalas made out of trash that the gallery has collected, you know, like the, you know. So we're recycling a bunch of stuff actually. And they're going to be, the mandalas are going to be on the wall and on the floor. I'm not quite sure how big, but maybe that big the most. And then there will also be projections of what I can only call the obvious iniquity that I see in Baltimore. I go to Red Emma's to have this vegan stuff. Not because I'm a vegan, but because it's the best place to have lunch. And outside are the people who are coming back from the methadone clinic. And one day I was sitting there and I looked out the window because everybody from the clinic is catching a bus to go to the west side. And the west side is where there were riots. So, you know, it's not a good situation. It's not a good solution. It's just not good. And people are, you know, it's like looking at zombies, basically. There's no other way you can say it. And so they're waiting for the bus, and then there's this thin pane of glass. On the other side are these people eating vegan food, doing cell phones, you know, typing on laptops, and all this thing, and it's just a glass away. And so I think, you know, here's where the whole unconscious comes in. I'm not sure what I'm saying with all this, but I'm saying that something is unequal here, and we have to recognize this. Something is, we have to recognize this. So it's just like putting a mirror on to the way it is. And the mandalas, again, have something to do with hopefulness. And using the trash is, you know, it's our environment. It's not just trash, it's us, it's our environment. And the performance part is actually going to be, I think, pretty much sitting like this in conversation of some sort. I'm not quite sure what to say. But I think that, you know, I really would like things to change, and I really would like things to have an equitable outcome. And even though I'm not pie in the sky, and this really never happened in my lifetime or 12 lifetimes, it just seems now that we live in such a small world because of the internet, and we just can't have conflict like this. It can't go on like this. It's just we're too on top of each other to let this happen. I mean, maybe when we were separated by so much time and space, no, it's too dangerous. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. You might not feel that. And you might feel like I'm being very naive about it. Because as much as I shredded and twisted newspapers, I never really read them. So. And I don't know if reading them really helped anything.
Do you feel like the work is aspirational in nature?
Yes. Yes.
So even with the wrestling, there's always the seal.
Well, one has to be careful. Because otherwise it's just too so depressed you can't do anything.
Yeah,
And the only reason why I can go on and on and on like this is because I feel that there is a relationship between making sculpture and living life. I don't see a real barrier between making things, like making this rounded place that we're sitting in now, and making sculpture. It's sculpture. It's all sculpture. And, you know, us being able to talk like this is a sculptural experience. And we know this, I mean, and this is not something I'm inventing. This is something that's been going around for a long time. And you might remember the diatribes of Joseph Beuys. Do you remember those? You know, his flights of fancy with the coyotes and all of the business. You know. That was because he felt that way about sculpture too. A lot of people now talk about him being, you know, shaman type of character. I don't know. But I think that's, you know, one way of separating the artist from society. I don't think that's
You threw me for a loop right there, saying that as much as you twisted newspapers, you did not read them. So I'm intrigued over how you have a title for a piece called Wretched News, and you're not reading Wretched News.
Wrenching.
That changes everything.
Take that.
Because I was getting upset. I was like, she's calling it Wretched News and she's not even reading the news. All right, we're good.
By virtue of a newspaper, though, it's
I like that. That's really good. That's good. You know, who is that comedian who would go on and then say, oh, never mind. Who is that?
Gilda Radner.
Gilda Radner. Right.
Never mind. Your thing. Great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like gut wrenching.
Yes.
I'm really interested in the list of just like reading the kind of words on the side.
And you know what's weird about that? I didn't realize until she told me today it was alphabetical.
That's so fascinating. I thought it would be chronological. You know, why did you do it alphabetically? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm pretty certain.
It's a really interesting weaving of kind of like natural materials and media and genre, and there's kind of like this wonderful, like we have natural forms like branches and bristles and leaves, but then we have like, you know, man-made things like newspaper and canopies, and there's like a really interesting interplay between those sort of natural organic forms. And I wondered what this work would look like and like what it would be made of, given like that there's this kind of interplay between the man-made and then the fabricated and the natural form. I wondered if you wanted to talk about that in relation.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a picture you want?
Just, I have one. They all look great.
Yes, they do.
Well, well, I still feel that we have a problem with the world and colleges and the environment, although I don't think it's really about saving it, I think we're just talking about it. So that I was thinking of vanishing nature, and I was using my robe, and I just started looking at it and saying, boy, this looks like a thistle. You know, or that thing, you know, that you, I don't mean, it's not a thistle, it's a dandelion seed. You know, that thing that you blow, and then, well, that's what it reminded me of. And then I did it so that it was really big. It was like a grid of 10 by 10, and it, you know, took up 10 by 10 feet. And then I did it small like this, and there were branches that were clustered together in the back, and you sewn together and hung like a curtain. And then in front of it was, you know, one of those scrims from stage work, and then sewn into the scrim material were the And it was, I had a residency at PS1 that year. It was before they stopped doing that. Yeah, so I made it there. And then there was a window behind it that, that's the silhouette that you did.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It is poetic.
I think that the thistles lend themselves to hope.
Now, how did you attach those,
The branches?
yes.
I think I was just twist tying them together. And then maybe somehow hung them or sealing with some monofilament. You know, I would get like that brown twist tie you see in the florist. Yeah. I worked for a florist for a long time. That was horrible. That was really bad. That was low. Yeah, but I got a lot of materials. Like I started using leaves that way. I mean, because I was responsible for cutting all the leaves off the roses. You know how when you get a fancy bunch of roses, you don't have fancy leaves. Well, I did that. And then I collected the leaves, and then I found that you could preserve them somewhat by putting them in glycerin, and then I started doing that and putting them on the wall, and you know.
So good, they found
It was horrible at the time. Yes, that was when they still had studios for individuals. Yeah, classrooms. Yeah, I was telling somebody that they should go to, I was telling you this morning, Madeline. There's this show in New York now called Spring Break. It's one of the, and it's in the post office building. And it looks so much like PS1 because there's all these little rooms. And there's a different project in every room. It's very, it was very inspiring, that show, actually. You're going to be back in New York before it's over. I suggest that you go over. I don't suggest it's in New York. However. Well, I mean, the other, those big fairs. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Is there anything that you do daily? I mean, like it's raining.
Well, I do Breath of Joy. When, oh, we should all do it. Okay. Do you all want to do Breath of Joy and call it a night? Oh no, this is just right. I forgot. I was thinking when we came at 7 that we that's a really good question. And I suppose there were some things I would be brushing my teeth. But one thing I like to do, like when I'm traveling, if I don't know, I know there's not going to be any exercise or anything, is I do Breath of Joy. But then I just took a yoga class today, which was very good. Yeah, very good. And, but anyhow, we could do Breath of Joy at your nice and
Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for handling it.
I got you.
So Breath of Joy is 5 breaths. Let's say 5 breaths. And so we have to all stand up. So, I mean, the total thing is going to be 5 breaths, 5 cycles. Okay. So this is a cycle. Inhale. No, through the nose. So it goes. And then another inhale. To the side. And then another inhale. And then a big exhale through your mouth. And then. This is 3. Thank you very much.
Thanks for running the show.
You did that just so you could
Intro.
get